So there have been rumblings. There have been murmurs, there have been whispers in some dark alleyways that I've visited that there might be a Dark Souls 3 remake. It feels about right. It's been about 10 years since the old one. Uh, maybe are we past 10 years? I don't know. Dark Souls 1 got a remaster. Dark Souls 2 had Scholar of the First Sin. Elden Ring was so popular. I think they're kind of spinning their wheels a little bit with the whole Night Rain and Duskbloods thing. I think I don't know. I kind of wish they would make like an actual follow up to Elden Ring instead of like these kind of multiplayer things. I don't know. I've been a lifelong Souls fan. I've been a lifelong FromSoft fan. I got into it when I was very small, probably younger than I should have been playing games this like violent, but it's okay. The But I have mixed feelings on Dark Souls 3 as a game. That was always the entry that I liked the least from Demon Souls to Elden Ring. I feel like it reused way too much. It was too much nostalgia baiting. It felt like an overcorrection of Dark Souls 2 because Dark Souls 2 is a very flawed game, but I think it did a lot right that Dark Souls 3 then went ahead and got wrong. Particularly with the build variety and character customization was just like DS3 always felt so constrictive in comparison to Dark Souls 2, and that just never made sense to me as it is the following game. You would think it would be the most boisterous and boisterous. What am I saying? You'd think it'd have the biggest build variety of the Dark Souls trilogy because it's the last one, but it has the least, and it's like half the length of Dark Souls 2. I don't know. Elden Ring to me felt more of a proper follow-up to what was established in Dark Souls 1 and 2 than Dark Souls 3 did to those games, if that makes any sense. But a remake, that's an idea. I certainly still enjoy Dark Souls 3 as a base game, and even if the remake was nothing more than a color update, I honestly think Dark Souls 3 could benefit the most from that. Because Dark Souls 2 got Scholar of the First Sin, which definitely made the game look a little bit nicer, especially with some of the lighting. But Dark Souls 3, the main thing for me is the color palette. I always disliked the kind of piss yellow skybox that's in a lot of the early game, and a lot of the areas like the Grand Archives that I feel like could have been a little more colorful. They're just very gray, and that makes them stand out from each other a lot less, which is something that FromSoft is amazing at, is making very distinctive areas. I mean, you look at Dark Souls 1, you look at gameplay from Blighttown, it's like you're in Blighttown. You look at gameplay from Sen's Fortress, you're in Sen's Fortress. You look at Honor Londo to Ulasil Township, it's like they are distinctive in vibe, color, in the monster designs. Dark Souls 3, it's like you could look at some rooftops from the Grand Archives and rooftops from like Cathedral of the Deep, and if you haven't played it in a while, you might not be able to tell which one is which. Also, so many those little thieves, worst enemy ever. I don't like those little thief guys with the axes. I cannot stand. I hate that they're in like half the areas in that game. But don't get me wrong, I like Dark Souls 3. I particularly like its DLC, and I think that a remake could have a lot of potential. What I would want from a Dark Souls 3 remake is to dramatically redo the color palette and visual style of the game. And I would also want it to have changes to the world design. Because, look, I get they're probably not going to change the areas themselves, but I don't even think that the level designs are that bad. It's more just the way they connect to each other. Dark Souls 3 is very linear, and that's fine, but feels like there's spots where it's unnecessary for it to be as linear as it is, and it makes it feel constrictive and therefore less replayable than a Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2, or even something like Bloodborne, which similarly has a pretty linear progression route, but like I feel like has more optional stuff. Maybe that's not true if you actually break down how many areas there are, but Dark Souls 3 just I like, for example, High Wall of Lothric going into the Undead Settlement, I really feel like there's no reason that at that point you should not be able to reach the Catacombs or Fair Keep, or at least part of those areas from like that point, because having to do the whole Undead Settlement and then the whole Crucifixion Woods, and then you can choose either Cathedral of the Deep or the Fair Keep, and then you do the Catacombs, it's just like it's too much of a straight line with like a couple branching paths. I much prefer when it's like you have a lot of choices of where to go. And I feel like a lot of people playing a Dark Souls 3 remake will have played the original game and will be very familiar with it. And so this will just open up new possibilities of how to explore the game. I would love to see some of the unused enemies, which looked really cool, come back. If they really remade this game, like remade this game and like added a lot of new stuff, if they added the God's Grave area that was totally scrapped, or the desert, adding a desert area, like actually going to Karthus, even if it was like disconnected from the main map, I would want to see that personally. Like I think Dark Souls 3 is a very flawed game, and I think that a remake certainly has potential to make it a lot better. And so, again, the main things I'd want to see: more build variety, let us infuse and buff stuff. Like, come on. Dark Souls 2 did that. It was so much fun. Let us dual wield whatever. Let us do wacky dual wield weapons. Fix the color. Like, make the colors just pop more. Make them more distinctive. And if they're really remaking it, I would love to see some of the cut stuff or some of the planned stuff for the original game make its way in, or even just extensions on what's there. I mean, like, one of my favorite areas is the Dreg Heap. If they wanted to just add like a whole new section to that, I think it'd be interesting. And if they don't, if it is just a direct, like, more of like the Demon Souls remake where it's almost entirely the exact same gameplay and they just change the color, I think Dark Souls 3 could benefit from that a lot, honestly. Although it's possible all of this is wrong and we're going to get a swashbuckling adventure next, or what Miyazaki had hinted at about like a more artistic Souls game. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? You might think you know, but at the end of the day, you never know.